What's up, everybody? Ron Placone here, reporting for Status Coup. So, a couple days ago on the stream, I believe, as of the recording of this, it was on Tuesday, I covered the Mexican election. Now, for anyone who did not see that, Mexico elected a leftist. She was the former Mexico City mayor. Her name is Claudia Sheinbaum. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but she is a scientist. 61-year-old former Mexico City mayor and lifelong leftist ran a disciplined campaign capitalizing on her predecessor's popularity before emerging victorious in Sunday's vote. So that's her. She's a climate. Her background is in science. She has a PhD in energy engineering. Her brother's a physicist. She was very COVID cautious. She was masking at a time when other people were not. She was promoting testing in Mexico City when other places weren't as concerned about testing. She was kind of ahead of the curve there. And it looks very, very interesting what's going on. So to talk to me about it, I wanted to talk to somebody from, or not from Mexico, but somebody who is in Mexico and can give me some firsthand experience. So you may have seen their Twitch stream. They're an amazing artist and they're a Marxist, and they go by the Artsy Marxist. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. So let's start with the president, and then we'll talk a little bit about just the elections in general. So what's your take on the new president?
So, I think she is about as good as it gets
Mm,
in a capitalist country. She's from the Morena Party, which has a lot of history. I encourage people to look into it. Basically, there was some tumultuous stuff going on between communists in the 1960s, and what came from that is the Morena Party. And so it has some roots in Marxism, but it's also more of a social democratic party. So it's kind of an interesting compilation of different sorts of leftists. And AMLO, the current or the former president, is from this party. Worked closely with Claudia Sheinbaum. You did say her name right.
Oh, I did. Oh, good.
um, Worked closely with her. I mean, they were going to the same sorts of protests and stuff 30, 40 years ago. So they kind of knew each other, but then got better acquainted when Claudia Sheinbaum became the mayor of Mexico City. And so then they started working together closely within the Morena Party. So that's been really interesting because we have AMLO's term to kind of compare and contrast and see what we might expect. And there's been a lot of great things that have come from it. At the same time, there's been negatives, which is what I would expect again from a social democratic sort of party. But at the same time, people here have seen real improvements in their day-to-day lives, with infrastructure. AMLO helped organize the purchase of 13 plus energy plants from Spain so that Mexico would control more of its own energy. There's been wage increases, social welfare programs. My favorite of which is the fact that AMLO built 30 different, or not 30, it's more than that, hospitals in more than 30 states in Mexico that are free to the public if you're
Nice.
part of this government program that over 70% of Mexican jobs automatically qualify for. And you also get a housing stipend with the ability to buy a house later. So that's why homelessness isn't nearly as bad here as it is in the United States. So we're sort of going to be looking at a continuation of that. I keep getting mixed messages on whether Claudia is going to be more progressive or less progressive than AMLO. I've heard some people say more, especially with regards to climate change and the push for cleaner energy, which Mexico desperately needs because we keep having brownouts, and
Mm.
it's coming at the same time as these huge heat waves that are caused by climate change. So I had no electricity for a week, over a week, in 110 to 115 degree weather. And it got so bad that I had to walk in that heat to a Airbnb and with my dogs, because we were animals and people were dropping from heat stroke.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's an immediate concern. So I think a lot of people are relieved to have a climate scientist in power now. But yeah, it's going to be hard to see what she's able to do, being as we're on the border with the United States. The United States is a major trading partner. AMLO was really resistant to the United States in a lot of cases. He banned Roundup, put these big labels on all of the food that lists if there's too much sugar or sodium, and the US really pushed back against that. Try to get rid of GMO corn. And support indigenous Mexican corn species. So Claudia promises to continue that sort of initiative, but we have to see if she's able to like actually push back against the United States, because they're really, really, really trying to like threaten Mexico. I don't know if y'all have seen the news articles where they're like, yeah, we might invade Mexico. That there's been like multiple articles like that, and it's like, okay. Mexico would be a sovereign country. You can't really just like invade your neighbors, you know? So AMLO stood firmly against that and actually kind of low key threatened back the United States. Was like, well, I'll talk to all my 40 million Mexican descendants in the United States if y'all try that. But like, you know, it takes grit, because like they're sending lobbyists and just.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're the U.S. is the world's bully. There's no getting around it. We're the world's bully, and we're a really terrible neighbor. But well, talk to me a little bit about just the vibe, you know, being there. I mean, is it a pretty positive vibe? Are people excited? Were people celebrating? It seems like she won by a pretty decent margin. So, I mean, is she really the pulse of the people?
So yes, I would say that like a lot of people are really excited. I live in a conservative state though, so I've heard the opposite side of that. Like my neighborhood group chat texting like, "Oh, we're gonna have a dictator in power," and it's like, guys, like, you know. So I've heard whispers of both, but definitely a lot more support for Claudia Sheinbaum than not. And again, I'm in a conservative state, so if I'm hearing a lot of support for her, I think that says something. And there were big rallies in Mexico City. You know, she's made a point to be traveling to like every state to make visits and stuff. So yeah. And prior to the election, I was seeing a lot of like flag waving at intersections with signs and people excited. So that was nice to see. But it wasn't like months and months and months and months in advance, like in the United States, or like years. This was like 2 months in advance, like reasonable, you know?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
They don't draw it out for years in other countries, and there's more than two parties. And what is the anatomy, by the way, in Mexico? Is it sort of similar to a lot of other systems where there are two main parties, but there's also like a bunch of other parties that have some power, or is it a little different?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like that, but the other parties, like I wouldn't say there's two main parties necessarily. There's just two that are the most popular right now. But like even when they were announcing the results, it showed like three parties, you know, and there's always the potential for change up within the parties. So Morena is by far the most popular right now. I think it's PRI that is. I'm still learning the names of all of the different parties here, but there's a conservative party that got like 30% of the vote or something, and the next one was it was like 15%. So yeah, I would say
now, and by conservative, you mean conservative by Mexico's standards?
Yes, which is
so the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it's you really would have to read about it, because like what's viewed as conservative and progressive here is completely different than the United States in a lot of ways. So all I can say is that Morena is much more focused on workers and bringing up, you know, the working class. So yeah.
Do you like it better than the system in the United States?
Yeah. I do, much better. I really don't like the 2 years in advance celebrity type hype. I really liked the fact that like the candidates that we had here at least had some credibility, you know, like even the ones that we disagree with at least have experience in government. It's not like a random like comedian or like a what was Trump?
I don't know why you singled out comedians.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about a different world leader. But yeah, like just somebody that's not got any experience in government. That's what I'm referring to. You know, like Trump. There's no reason that somebody like that should even be considered.
Right.
And whereas Claudia Sheinbaum is like, oh, it's a climate scientist who's got 20 years in running, the biggest city government in Mexico. It's, real qualifications, which I'm not used to having. Even Biden is like a Nepo baby, basically, so it's not real qualifications. It's like, yeah, so.
So one of the things that I also wanted to talk about, you're talking about some of the response of the United States. Another thing that they did was they brought up, and I'll show you this headline here. They brought up some of the violence that occurred, and they framed it in a way that I thought was pretty dishonest. And there's other examples kind of like this. Mexico elects first female president following deadliest election campaign in country's modern history. 37 candidates assassinated. They framed it in a way where if you didn't read past the headline, you would think that they meant 37 candidates running for president all got assassinated, and then she was the last one standing. That's how they want people. And a lot of people in the US, and I'm not just talking like crazy right wingers or whatever, a lot of like reasonable, rational people, like friends of mine and stuff, thought that that was what happened. And I had to be like, and I said it on Status Coup earlier in the week. I said, that's not what happened. There was a big election. There were over 20,000 seats. And out of those 20,000 seats, there were 37 different people who did get killed, which is messed up. I'm not downplaying that at all. That's terrible. But they're framing it in a way to make it seem like it's not what it actually was. And I feel like they're doing that to try to degrade the new president-elect.
Oh,
What's your take on that?
Well, and I also think the implication with that headline is that Claudia Sheinbaum was somehow connected. Like she was like hiring guys to go out, and like that's ridiculous. Like I do think to a degree, like political candidates here have to be on good terms with like a lot of people, but I don't think that that means that like Claudia Sheinbaum is going out and organizing anything like that. And I think they're trying to create fear of leftism because like they're scared because they know that Claudia Sheinbaum is probably going to try to raise wages, probably going to say no to the US, trying to lobby against initiatives for better health. 70% of the weapons that the cartel gets are from the United States and from companies licensed by the US government. So they know that that is a major reason for the violence here. And the US government not only allows it and encourages it, allows firearms to go over the border because instability here creates a cheap agricultural workforce in the United States. So this is a threat. What if Mexicans no longer want to leave and go work in the United States, which is already happening, by the way. More Mexicans are realizing how bad the United States is and staying here. And more Americans are coming here, fleeing the United States and working in call centers and other stuff because, oh my gosh, you can get a housing stipend. Like you're not going to live in like a mansion, but you know what? You'll have a house. So that completely threatens the United States. That's why they're trying to create fear. And it's funny because like Claudia Sheinbaum is not a communist. She's not going to like create some massive, huge change as far as I can tell, especially with the United States in its current state, very belligerent, very bellicose. She's going to be on a tightrope this entire time. So the fact that this is enough to scare them is kind of sad, but it just goes to show the state of how things are decaying in the United States, where they feel the need to just run article after article on other presidents,
Well, what is your take on what are some of the causes for that election related violence? I mean, we were a lot of the things I've seen, it seems like the cartel was likely involved in some cases. Like these weren't candidates the cartel wanted. Are you privy to anything else or?
I think climate change and the United States are the biggest contributors because the U.S. is known to feed drugs and firearms into Mexico to create instability here and all throughout Latin America. Also, climate change is really hitting people hard. Like when these brownouts happen, it all your electrics, if you don't have them unplugged, it can short out the machine. And so now you've got to replace a fridge, you've got to replace, so like when you have poverty, that creates instability because people need to feed their families. So I think that's the biggest contributor. We've seen record-setting heat waves here. And so I think people are desperate. And the inflation in the United States is really affecting us here. The food prices just keep going up and up. We're paying for food in a lot of cases the same prices as Americans were paying maybe 3-4 years ago. And Mexicans make about half on average of what an average American makes. So like people are not doing okay. Everyone I talk to here, they're like, yeah, we can't afford food. It's really bad. And I'm struggling to afford food too because it's so expensive, So I think that is the number one cause of violence. And I think until there's some sort of a solution socially to pull people out of poverty, that's going to continue until the United States puts some sort of a foot down on selling firearms here, which will never happen. That's going to continue. So that it'll have to come from Mexico. But what can Mexico do to stand up to the United States right now? They're going to have to wait till the US is weak enough to be able to take that kind of a stand. And that's way easier said than done. I don't think it's fair to blame Mexico for a lot of these problems,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's systemic.
Well, are you hopeful that, Claudia Sheinbaum will be able to turn a few things around and make some things happen? I mean, a lot of times somebody put it like this to me. We were both in Scotland and we were just sort of talking about, just the world and how you can't fully escape neoliberalism anywhere. But the way he put it was, he said, he goes, everybody is living in a society where there is a foot on the gas pedal of capitalism and it's driving way too freaking fast. But in other places, they have like social democracies and stuff like that just lets the foot off the gas a little bit. And even though it's nowhere close to enough, the quality of life is just infinitely better. And it just makes a world of difference in people's lives. Just letting it up a little tiny bit, which is not going to happen in the US anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you. I think that it's a big difference being here. I do think she's going to do some things that are going to be beneficial. A good sign is that she not only accepted felicitations. I'm forgetting how to translate that word. Congratulations, that's the word. She not only accepted congratulations from Xi Jinping and Putin, which are BRICS country world leaders, she returned them to Putin. So that's a good sign because we want to see Mexico working with BRICS countries. BRICS is basically trying to set up an alternate financial system that's a little more free of United States control. So they're not able to join yet, but Mexico has signaled an interest in potentially joining. And China also, when congratulating Claudia Sheinbaum, mentioned an interest in increasing trade with Mexico. And a lot of Chinese business people are now coming here because of that and very interested in the future of Mexico. So I think that is all a step in the right direction. The biggest key is going to be resisting some sort of overt violence from the United States or covert. A coup is a real risk here. A coup is a serious risk. So it's going to be averting that and rooting out corruption and then trying to make whatever increases to workers' rights that she can without angering the United States so much that they try that stuff. So it's going to be a tightrope. But, at the same time, I think that she is very capable of doing that,
That's awesome. Well, where can people go to learn more about you?
Well, my Twitter is Artsy Marxist with a 1 replacing the I. I'm Artsy_Marxist on Twitch and Instagram, so you can find me there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So,
all right. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. All right, there was a little behind the scenes footage from someone, or behind the scenes thoughts from someone in Mexico. Folks, before I end the segment here, I will mention this coming Saturday, June 8th, the last domestic screening of Left at Wall in Idlewild, California. There's going to be a short show, screening of the film, and a Q&A after. I will be there along with other cast members, Sarah K. Gadot and Andrew Saxema. Tickets at romplacone.com. We've had Status Coup fam at every show the past 2 years. Idlewild, California, I'm counting on you. See you this Saturday, June 8th. And this is Ron Placone for Status Coup, signing out.